Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Wednesday, the 5th of April. So let's quickly have a look at the news events today. In fact, let's go and have a look at that first as it's slow. We've got then Wednesday the 5th. So Chinese bank holiday still going on. New Zealand dollar, then the cash rate there is expecting for 5. They've actually increased it by 0.5% from where it was expected. So a bigger increase on the New Zealand dollar there. So that's a bit of a shocker. But it just shows how strong inflation is running, and the concerns of an overheating economy effectively, well, in terms of inflation, that is. So that is quite a shocker in other terms as well, because although there's 0.25% priced in, as with a lot, it was expected that we're going to be seeing quite a slow up of rate increases, but to see 0.5% at this stage is, as I say, is quite a shocker with the New Zealand dollar. Okay, aside of that, we've got Australia. We've had Australian Reserve Bank of Australia, even governor speaking there at 3:30 this morning. We've got the ADP non-farms later. Not ever a very accurate data, but people still react to it. How it's got a red, I don't know, but it can create volatility, I suppose. And the ISM services PMI then at 3 o'clock. Now we've seen some horrible numbers coming out. The job openings was a bit less yesterday. It's not got all the data here, is it? But we've seen for the US more negative figures. I was looking, it's not even highlighted on this one, but in other data it was coming out low as well. So the US doesn't seem to be having the best of times at the moment in terms of their economics. Probably to be expected, as they've increased interest rates at a record rate. So they're now having perhaps the choking effect that was possible. So let's look through the markets now. I'm scratching my head again this morning. It's we've had some nice trendy sort of markets, and with some with potential recently. So I can't moan, but I will, of course. But it's well, I'm looking at this euro dollar, and sorry, I'll come back. I didn't say what I was thinking here. We can see the higher lows coming through here. It is getting pretty close to prior highs, so it's got some potential. Of course, we took out the near-term highs. I could see orders sitting above there. It obviously had a nibble through these areas, but pushed on through, took out the sell orders. And the buy orders that were also sitting there, the big piles of buy orders sitting above these highs for both the euro and the pound. As it's sitting at the moment, well, it just looks like it's got more upside than the 4-hourly. It's just consolidating around this area. The only thing is, I would like it to come down and catch the pivot. If it does, it puts a lower high in, and I don't trust the move. So it's between a rock and a hard place here. Is it going to get an edge up and go straight away, in which case I'll be more positive on it, but it's a mess. The pound, similar picture here, but it can get away with hitting the pivot first without really destroying too much. The key thing here again is well, say even more key, because it's broken its prior highs here in quite some way, so it's really given a decent shove there. Higher lows coming through there. One thing to watch out on the weeklies here, we're into the R2, so it might just stall things for now a bit longer. On the dailies, well, that pivot hit might just see us come back up. It's a bit more iffy when it sort of starts, as I say, coming into R2s. It's pushed all the way through. Had a decent move this week so far. Might stall as we get towards the end of the week. Remember, we've got the long weekend effectively, because there's Friday and Monday missing for a lot of markets. Morning, guys. Ray, Cam, morning. Ian, good morning. Okay, so where are we sitting? The US dollar yen at last, he says. Now, this is one I'm looking at, and I was thinking, well, certainly, what it's done on these shorter term frames. I expect more downside from it, the sentiment, etc. I expect more downside. It started to go. I mean, it went yesterday 3 o'clock. There you go. But it wasn't it certainly wasn't in any shape to be looking too much to the downside prior to that, and it's just the news came out and off it sold. Choppy where it is at the moment. Again, maybe if it breaks down, hits its S1 first, it's got a bit more scope, but I'm wary of these markets, just wary in terms of they're not absolutely clear. The Aussie's taken more of a hammering. It's just come out to time frames here. It's still in this sort of range rising channel sort of pattern, and it's dropping back again from its monthly R1, beg your pardon. A break of these lows here on that we can see in the 4-hourly chart here would give us a lower high and suggest further downside. It could then just go into a chop, of course. It looks quite nice and clean at the moment. It's already hit the pivot, so the chances of the S2 being hit in normal conditions is quite light. It's maybe being dragged a little bit by the New Zealand dollar going off as well, but it is quite neutral. The expectations, it's quite different to the New Zealand dollar. They're expecting not to increase rates. It's certainly looking soft, and intermediate time frame coming off here. Sorry, this is I've changed markets here. I've managed to get onto looking at the Aussie, switched across to the Canadian dollar and didn't announce it, so the US dollar Canadian. I mean, this is looking really nice and soft. It is consolidating around where it is at the moment. I would like to see this consolidation turn into further downside because I'm short on the CAD. It's not the prettiest at the moment. If it breaks yesterday's intermediate high, well, that gives us a higher low and suggests more of a turn on this at the moment. But commodity currencies just struggling. As I said, we've seen with the Aussie. Yesterday's sort of 3 o'clock move really it gave the Canadian dollar a bit of a move. I was looking at it just shortly afterwards and thinking maybe we just bottomed out here. This downward move's bottomed out. In the bigger scheme of things, coming back, well, it's just a blip within the pattern, but what we're seeing. But to be fair, with the move we've had down here, perhaps we should be seeing some consolidation. I do expect it to come off further, but struggling at this stage. New Zealand dollar, well, this is where we're going to see the action kicking through here. It's actually pushed up quite strongly against the US dollar there, and it has across a lot of markets, but coming back a little bit, but that's quite a surprise. We could see a further bit of reaction through the markets as the London market comes into play. Okay, Euro Yen. Euro Yen, who's looking at this a short while ago, it does now. It's come back up to the higher time frames, explain what's happening here. So it's pushed into the prior highs there. It's just looking at all a bit struggling there. We're pretty close to getting a lower high come through on this time frame, on the 4-hourly time frame, and certainly we could get another one on this hourly here. So there's the bigger one that we could be sort of seeing, but before that we could be seeing it. It does look more short to me than long now, and well, my only concern a short while ago as it was moving back up is I've said, well, we've got the untouched pivot above, but well, if it hits the S1 first, well, it's got more scope of running down to the S2. Other markets, everything's doing okay against the Aussie because that's being sold, and any New Zealand dollar pairs are being sold the opposite way. The New Zealand dollar doing the best, the Aussie pretty much doing the worst. Likes the Euro CAD, which this could find its way going up. There's a bit more of a battle going on here. We just see how strong the euro was versus the CAD yesterday at 3 o'clock. I mean, it flew. which suggests, well, it's the euro's holding again at the moment. Perhaps we could see a sort of a continuation of that upside. But overall, I'm just flicking through other markets, and there's the Aussie pair, the pound Aussie again already gone this morning. Don't really want to be looking to chase that. The pound CAD is more again like the euro CAD. There's not a great deal of difference. The Aussie CAD coming off. Probably one of the cleaner ones. I was looking for this to come off more yesterday. It didn't. It's consequently pushed up there. It's gone through the Asian session here. Maybe it has got some more downside to come. That's the Aussie CAD, Aussie Yen. Same. The Aussie weak. The Aussie is certainly the weakest across there. The board, the New Zealand dollar sitting there as the strongest, and you'll see the New Zealand dollar's absolutely caned the Aussie here. But there aren't any immediate trades, I'm afraid. After spending the time there, that's all I'm really looking for in the mornings is some trades. Things do change post 8 o'clock, and I'll keep an eye on things, and we'll be looking to see if we get any setups. Moving across then, crude was selling off yesterday. It wasn't helping the Canadian dollar or the Aussie dollar too much, but it's since, well, pushed back and held up a little bit, but certainly from what I'm seeing, it's not helping too much at the moment. Just in case you're following Brent, it's almost the same picture. There we go. So I tend to look at Western Texas most mornings rather than that. I didn't mention gold yet. Let's have a look at gold. Well, gold benefiting yesterday to a degree. It's pushed up there on this 4-hourly picture. It had this sort of decent move there, taking out the prior highs. Certainly around that 3 o'clock. It had already started beforehand, but certainly at the 3 o'clock news there, catching a bit more of a surge. This is the safety element of it coming back into play. It's broken now beyond where it was being limited to a degree last month by its R2. It was getting close. Now it's broken that sort of level and looking once again bullish. Looking at the equity markets, the CSI 300, just checking, that's closed. That was closed. So the Nikkei, yep, that was open. Sold off back to its monthly pivot, new monthly pivot here. Real sell-off here. We're seeing it through a lot of the US markets, which could be dragging it down. The Nifty 50, well, unusual bit of joy coming in. It's certainly going further to the upside here. I'm just going to pull this across a little bit more, this trend line. It's still largely locked in the bear zone, but it has put a higher low in, and at some stage could be pushing up further. So it's got some scope for the upside. S&Ps, looking at the S&Ps, bearish engulfing candle yesterday. Really didn't like that news. As you see, at 3 o'clock it was pushing up quite nicely most of the morning, running into its R1, but then just coming off a little bit earlier, actually around about 2 there, it started moving off southbound. So Dow Jones, similar picture here. It's looking softer. It's softer from yesterday. If it manages to get up towards its pivot, maybe we can see it break, but it's got the 34 and the 50 just above there. The Nasdaq gone quite horrible recently. It's just sort of it's having its little surges, and then it's getting its move, pulling back, getting its move, pulling back. Is it going to get its move? Break above the pivot would be more bullish. Would only then expect maybe a pullback. Coming close to home then, the DAX this morning back into prior highs here. It's pops the highs there yesterday. The last week's highs. It's has it popped the highs altogether and it's come back? Sorry, I've got trouble with this. It did actually pop. It's popping and dropping at the moment. Yesterday there ended up not the most bullish overall, and again uncertainty into the US often has its knock-on effect. Choking at the moment. This is another one. It's quite similar to the other markets. If it can push back above the pivot, well, then I'd be a bit more bullish, but at the moment not looking too good. And the FTSE, well, it reacted more yesterday. It's another one of these that's reacted and looking just that bit softer after having a sort of a decent week or so to the upside. Short term here, again, well, in this case looks very much like some of the currencies at the moment. If it does break to the downside here, we could expect the S1 run, a break above the pivot there though, and it would be much more bullish again. So it's in a bit of an either or spot. As it's Wednesday, let's have a look what's been going on in that world of, I was going to say dodgy coins, but that's not fair, is it? How dare I? Now, even though I was reading yesterday that the US government is selling into this, they've got a whole lot of coins that they captured, and they're selling in. Is it 50,000 or something like that? It's quite a lot. That they're pretty good at selling in, and well, they're every time it's popping in, but they're effectively holding it back. All this selling, it is pushing up on a bit lower volume. It's questionable whether it, once they're finished, whether we'll see a bit more of a shove to the upside there. But there's Bitcoin. It is holding there. Ethereum pushing through a little stronger, carrying on, hasn't got the coins being sold against it, so maybe this is a sign of things to come for Bitcoin once those coins are all cleared out. Ripple, well, Ripple's had some good times, but it's looking more positive off of its monthly pivot here and could have some further upside. Okay, so there's some cheers still to be had. I was looking at some of the tables that get sent across on my news service, and it's suggesting that traders are getting greedy again, a sign of greed coming through. So we'll see if this drives the market further. Fear is always a good place, because when it starts moving from fear, we get some lovely moves. Greed is not such a good place for him to be, but it could well mean that we'll see further upside on these markets as we're seeing technically at the moment. Okay, on that note, I'm going to wish you a lovely day. It's getting towards Easter. Maybe take the week off. Yeah, I've gone through everything. Have a great one. Bye for now.